What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Breathing Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today, we have a special guest. This guy has been all over the U.S., all over the world. He's a travel outdoor enthusiast, mountain climber, skydiver, and just a free spirit. My cousin, Clint Sanderson. What's up, brother?
Hey man, how's it going?
Good, good. So you're out in L.A. right now, huh?
Yeah, hanging out down in California, just south of LA, waiting for all this quarantine stuff to finish up.
Yeah. So, and your cousin or your brother, my cousin Carter's down there too, living there. So I'm sure that's
Yeah.
a nice little it's a good place to be quarantined if you were to be quarantined.
Yeah, it's not bad. Sunny and 75. I'll take it.
That's right. So what you been doing? Hanging out, hitting the surf?
Yeah, I've been here for about a week or two, maybe 2 weeks now. Just been going out surfing every day, diving. Starting to get into that a little bit of free diving,
How,
and just hanging out. Water's nice and warm down here. I just came from Washington where it was freezing cold, so this water down here feels like bath water to me.
yeah. I went to the lake the other day and we jumped in and it was freezing. It had to be probably like 50 degrees. It was
Yeah,
considered cold tub temperature.
yeah, nice. There you go.
Yeah. How is the water though when you're down there? Are you is it pretty clear? I'm sure it's pretty clear.
Some spots are a little murky, but there are a few good little spots close by that super clear. You can see, from the rock, you can see 20 feet down to the bottom. And it's really clear, warm. It's just perfect, man. It's perfect.
Yeah. You recently got the haircut, I see. You had the
Yeah,
long hair there for a while.
I chopped it all off. Actually, donated it this past year, like 20 inches or something like that.
Yeah. When I say long, people, it was long. It was Captain Jack Sparrow on there.
Yeah, it was long for sure. It was like down my butt.
That's awesome. That's a good cause though that you were able to, at least put it to something. That's a good cause for sure. Do you miss it?
Um, Sometimes I don't know. It's interesting. I do feel like less people are like, or people are like less friendly now that I have short hair. Like when I had long hair, everyone was like, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, how you doing?"
Yeah. It's
Just
like
like wanted to talk.
they're like, this guy must be cool. He's got super long hair.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any personality change whenever you cut it? Because I feel like my buddy had long hair too, and then he cut it, and he was like, I don't know, I feel kind of different now.
Maybe. I'm no, not at all.
That's funny. Well, let's start from the jump. So tell everybody a little bit about, what it was like growing up, where you're from, family, all that good stuff.
Yeah, okay. So I was born out in Colorado actually. Didn't spend much time there. After that, we went down to Alabama, and then majority of the time was spent down in Tennessee. Grew up there. Dad was a basketball coach. Mom stayed at home with us, took care of the kids. We got three brothers, so she had a full-time job taking care of all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you saw. So yeah, I grew up down in Tennessee playing basketball. Dad was coaching basketball, going to school just like every other kid.
Was that your
And did
first
that.
basketball, like something that obviously it was a family thing? Was it something
Oh,
like, I love this?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was every day, all the time. Grew up doing that. Summer camps. Went to like 8 every week. Was at a different summer camp playing ball. On Christmas Day, we'd open presents, put our presents away, go play ball, and then come back and play with our presents. So yeah, absolutely loved it. Did it all the time. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I have great memories coming up there and just, being with the guys, going to camp. Camp is always fun. Just that's where I learned all my fundamentals out at Lipscomb University, where your dad coached for so long.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. And he's at Henderson, right? Henderson,
Faulkner. No, he's down at Faulkner in our Montgomery, Alabama now.
Montgomery, out in
Mhm.
Faulkner. That's awesome. So you started with basketball and then, basketball family, and then you started forming kind of like your own identity. So when did this start coming about?
Um, so I think it was like eighth grade year. I was getting really serious into basketball, and I even held myself back in eighth grade just to grow. Because I was super short and still am to this day. The growing plan never worked out. It never happened for me. But stayed back in 8th grade to try to get a little bit better at basketball and hopefully grow. And then it was that year, God, I don't know if like 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I have no idea how long ago that was. But
It's a
it
while.
was that year I was actually out hunting with some buddies and flipped a four-wheeler and cracked 2 ribs and collapsed the lung and ended up in the hospital for a couple of days and missed that entire second 8th grade year season of basketball. And so it was during that time that I kind of, because before then I never did anything else. Like it was basketball, basketball, and more basketball. That was it. It was never, no, there was nothing else. I hunted a little bit, but not much. So it was during all of that I got out of basketball, started doing other things. And that I actually, when I kind of found out about the military and started having thoughts and ideas about going that direction, like, if basketball doesn't work out, if I can't get things back on track, what am I going to do? Because I had no other plan. It was basketball. It was go to high school, play ball, go to college for scholarship and play ball, go to the NBA, play ball,
Yeah.
retire, and like commentate on basketball. Like, that was the plan. I had no other. Hadn't even thought about a second plan. So it was during all that when I kind of started looking for other things just in case.
Yeah. And what about the military kind of sparked your eye where you're like, man, this is something I might be into?
I actually met a guy who was a Marine, and just hearing his talks and conversations about it and how much it meant to him and how much of a purpose that he felt from it, was like, man, that's really cool. Like, because basketball, it was about me and it was about making money and being rich and having a big stinking house. That was, but then just like a different light, like military, it's not about you so much. For some reason, just in my mind, I mean, I'm sure anyone can agree to this, but it just seemed like a greater purpose, seemed more fulfilling maybe to
Yeah.
get something out of it that way.
No, absolutely. And it's crazy that sometimes injury or something like that has to happen so you can kind of be like, whoa, maybe this isn't a life thing. Like maybe I need to look at some other options here. So the
Right.
very thing happened, and then you had some health complications. I know that kind of stifled that plan a little bit. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So actually, on my 17th birthday, I left home, went up to Virginia. I enrolled myself into a military academy, Fort Union Military Academy up in Virginia, and moved up there and was up there doing that for about 2 months and loved it. Oh, love it now. Glad I went. Maybe not at the time, but was doing that and just loved the structure of it, loved the discipline of it. The focus of it was great. I actually got really strong up there. Went from like 150 to 165, 3% body fat in like 4 months.
Yeah.
Just really intense and absolutely loved every second of it. But um, we were working out one day and just my arm just like went numb and just turned completely like black and blue down the shoulder. And I was like, Sergeant, I don't think this is normal. Like my arm's like completely black and blue and swollen and bruised. Turned out I had like the muscle in the rib in my shoulder had pinched off the vein. It's called thoracic outlet syndrome. So no blood could get in or out of my arm. It completely just closed it off. So they had to go in, remove the rib, create some space, and the artery was so damaged that they had to go into my leg and pull an artery out of my leg and replace the one in my shoulder. It was like a 15-day ordeal. Tried to keep it from my parents at first, tried to not tell them about it. And I was like, no, I don't tell them about it. Just like, let's just fix this and then get back to it. But then after like we found out that how serious it was, they were like, you're only 17, so we kind of have to tell your parents. So your mom's on her way up here. And I was like, oh no, knowing she was gonna flip out, just absolutely freak. But yeah, so 15 days in the hospital and just that was the end of that. Another injury, the military was like, we can't, it's a liability issue. Maybe try again in a couple of years. We'll see what happens. And so yeah, that was the end of that chapter.
They know what's that stemmed from? Was it,
So
going to happen or?
it was from working out too much. So it's very common in lumberjacks and baseball players, and also the doctor said skinny white women, but I leave that one out all the time.
Is that the closest to skinny white woman?
Yeah, the skinny white women might have been what caused it. I don't know. Apparently it's like an overuse of the shoulder muscle. You overdevelop the muscle, and it's just for some reason your anatomy is a little different, and there's just not enough space up there for everything to sit, and so they had to pull that rib out.
Mm.
Yeah,
Be nice and painful.
it was, and I was throwing up after it for a couple days, and like all the pain meds I could take were by mouth. I was throwing them up, so I couldn't take any pain meds. And you can talk to my mom about that. I had some colorful language one of those nights. I was in a lot, a lot of pain for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one of the first times, maybe not the first, but one of the first times my parents heard me say the F-bomb was when I dislocated my shoulder the second time. I had done it the week before in football. I was a junior in high school, and I did it again the next week, and they couldn't pop it back into socket that time. So it was just out and just sitting out. And for anyone that's ever dislocated a shoulder before knows that, like, when it's out of socket, it's the most painful thing ever. And it was out of socket for like over an hour from the field to the drive to the hospital. I'm just like, like just bombs. And my mom's like, Mason, I'm like, you don't know how bad this hurts. Like, but those injuries will come bite you in the butt. So
yeah.
what was the rehab like for that?
A lot of physical therapy, just trying to get mobility back. At first, it was like immobilize it, let that all heal up. They did a lot of stuff to it. They did 3 or 4 surgeries on it because they replaced the artery in there, but then it collapsed again, so they had to go back in and just keep working on it. So at first, it was just stay still, don't rip anything back open that we've cut open in there, and then it was months of just physical therapy, trying to get mobility back in that arm. And I caught it super late, apparently, in the process. Apparently, it had been blocked off for about 8 to 9 months, they said.
Wow.
So the damage down my arm was a lot more extensive, too. They had to replace a huge portion of the vein or the artery, whatever it was. So, yeah, it took several months just to get my arm to be like able to lift it past my head.
What are you thinking during all this time? Like, as you're rehabbing and stuff, you're 17 years old. Like, what's going through your mind at this time?
Oh, I better start studying and get smart because I keep breaking everything. I better get a good job sitting on a computer or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Your body's like, oh, I don't know. You may need to think about a different occupation here, buddy.
Yeah, basketball seemed to be out. Military was definitely out at that point. It was like, okay, what's option C now?
Does it give you any complications now, or are you pretty back to normal?
No, it's back to normal. Although I did do it again to the opposite shoulder.
Wow.
Maybe 4 years ago now. Did that while climbing, but I caught that like really quick. We can talk about that later, but caught it fast, and it was like a 1 month thing, and that was it. Like,
Yeah. So that's a good trigger point into this next kind of segment. You're getting through all of, these things, these injuries, and then you get out of it, and what's going through your mind? Like, what was the next step once you get out of this rehab and you're kind of back to normal?
Yeah. So honestly, I was pretty lost with all of it. Didn't really know what to do because the plan was always basketball. I know there was never even thought of trying to think of a second plan. It's just let's go play ball.
Yeah.
And then finally the military was the second plan. And then when that was over, it's like, what now? Like the plan was to go to college and get a business degree like everybody else and then go play basketball. Like, let's get something, whatever, get through it and be done. So after that, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I even want to go to college for because now I'm thinking, I actually have to use my degree. So maybe I should get something that I want instead of just whatever so I can play ball. So I went to Harding University in Arkansas, Searcy, Arkansas, a small little Christian school down there. And right before I left, I had met a girl. So like that was a whole thing. But went to school in Arkansas, had a double major in business management and accounting. And just growing up, I hated school like every kid. I didn't want to go, never was always late to class, didn't get out of bed in the morning. Just no, I got out of bed, but like I would go play basketball or I'd go do something else. Like, I didn't never want to go to school. And that didn't change in college one bit. Like I'd wake up in the morning and be like, no, I don't think I really want to go to school or to class today. And my mom wasn't there to make me. So, you know, I'm going hiking or I'm going fishing. So was never in school, was never in class. And then and every weekend I'd go back to Tennessee to see the girl I was with. And ended up second semester moving back to Tennessee to be with her. Went to school at Lipscomb second semester there. And same thing. Didn't go to class, was hanging out with her, was going hiking. Hadn't found climbing at this point, but was just doing everything but going to class.
Right.
Um, and then my family decided they're moving to Alabama. My dad got a new job because they lived just down the road from where I was going to school. And I had decided to take just a semester off, take 6 months, take a semester off, figure out what it is I'm passionate about again, figure out what it is I want to work for, what I want to do. Because I realized, I'm going to school paying a lot of money for this, and I haven't gone to class in 20 days.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just like I skipped here and there. It was like I skipped and would go out of town for like a week and just wouldn't go at all. Um, so I just had to take a semester off. My family was moving to Alabama. They're like, come with us to Alabama, and love Alabama. Roll Tide, absolutely. But other than that, there's not much to do down there. So I was like, not having it, not going to Alabama. And I just moved back to Tennessee to be with the girl I was with. So I wasn't fixing to leave her again. And then, so right before that semester started, she broke up with me and was like, hey, I'm actually going to Patagonia for the semester.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, sweet. Thanks for the heads up. When do you leave? And she's like, tomorrow. I was like, cool, cool.
Wow.
Sweet. So now like my family's gone, you're splitting. Also, I had bought a German Shepherd at this point. Dumb idea, just whatever. um, and just had no idea what to do.
Yeah. I
Was
want
working for
that, but
you want one?
I want one, but I'm just like the same. You said dumb idea, and I know why, because it's a responsibility, a big
It's like having a kid,
yeah, and especially
especially one that big.
yeah, the big kid, hungry.
Hungry kid, for sure. But yeah, so I had him, and so with the German Shepherd, you can't rent an apartment anywhere because it's an aggressive dog breed. No one's gonna let you rent.
Yeah.
Trying to find a house that was cool with the German Shepherd being there is hard to do. Um, and I was working part time at Home Depot in the lumber section, just doing that just to make a little bit of money. And for a bit there, I was just kind of bouncing around from place to place, different people's houses, sleeping in the back of my Jeep just because when I didn't have somewhere to go, which was not at all like that. Ended up going a whole different direction. We'll talk about that. Sleeping in my car. And I thought, I'm just trying to find a place. I'll sleep in the car for right now. No big deal. I'll be done with this pretty soon. But then ended up getting a job at a climbing gym. Never had I'd gone climbing one time maybe at the gym. I was like, this is cool. And then went again. I was like, this is so sick. Like I really want to do this. And then I was out west and saw the Grand Tetons. I was like, oh, I want to climb that. Okay, well, I got to learn how to climb. What if I just get a job at that climbing gym back in Nashville? I'll do that. And then I'll go climb the Grand Teton. That was like the thought. It was no like, oh, I'm going to become a climber. It was just, no, I want to go hike this thing. And I found out that you had to know how to climb. So I went and got a job there. And about a month into that, maybe 3 months after my family had left, a buddy of mine was like, hey, why don't you just buy a van instead of your Jeep and like sleep in a van? And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean sleep in a van? No. And this was like before it was cool, van life, Instagram, all that stuff was a thing. This is like 5 years ago now at this point. And I was like, no, but live in a van, what the heck? No way. He's like, well, I'm doing it. You should like get a van, build it out together. So that's what we did. We both bought vans. I think I bought my first van for like $1,000. Put a little platform in there, threw a bed in there, threw my dog in there, and started living out of a van and climbing. And yeah, that's kind of what started that. And that just completely spiraled from there, just took off. Yeah.
Like,
Kind of how that.
so this just crazy idea of, hey, I'm going to live in my van and this guy that you met, did y'all start just going around places and hiking, or like, where would you park that thing?
Yeah, so I met him at the climbing gym, and it wasn't even an idea. It was like, I'm out of options. Like, I got this dog, I don't know where to go. I'm sleeping in the Jeep, and this sucks. Like, trying to sleep with all your stuff and a full-size German Shepherd in the back of a Jeep every night. Just like, oh man, this is ridiculous. This is so difficult. Like, and trying to cook food and keep food in there too, and like live full time. And I was like, I gotta find a place.
Did you just have one
He's
of
like,
those
man,
burners, or
yeah, it's like a little camp stove I would cook on. I'd pop the trunk open and just cook up some ramen noodles. It's super simple stuff. Um, but yeah, my buddy Akshay, I met him at the climbing gym. He's from India. He's like, you just buy a van, man. It's like, I was out west. I saw some guy doing it out west. You should totally do it. We should do it. And so yeah, we just bought vans and moved in. And we parked. So at first we parked behind the gym that we were working at. They didn't seem to care. And that's where we stayed most of the time until they were like, yeah, we can't have you guys sleeping in the parking lot. um, and so then it was just, random streets, side of the road somewhere just for the night. Walmart parking lot was awesome. Truck stops, well, you name it, stuff like that. So we kind of slept.
did you have any crazy nights or experiences where you're like sleeping in the van, like someone
Oh,
comes?
I've had several. Yeah, I've had several. Back in Tennessee, when I first started living in the van, I was like, maybe this isn't the safest idea. I didn't tell my family at first. I didn't tell them. I just took the van home one day with me. My dad was like, "What in the world is that thing?" Because it was a junker. It was a total just 1992 GMC Vandura, and it was like all beat up, just like crimson red color, and it just looked rough, but it ran. That's why I bought it, and it was cheap, so I bought it for that reason. And then I just accepted the fact that it was gross and nasty and kind of grungy, and so I put shag carpet down just to kind of add to the add to the effect, because why not? And yeah, when my dad saw it, he was like, "Dude, what? Like, what are you doing? What is this thing?" I'm like, yeah, this is where I live. Like, this is awesome. This is it.
Yeah. So what did they think you were doing in that window where you're like living out of the van? Were they, or sleeping in the Jeep? Like, did they think that you were staying with someone, or did they know, or did you keep that?
Well, I was staying a little bit with my buddy named Andrew. I was staying with him a good bit, um, sleeping in the because he was kind of living out a little further from where I was working. So every now and then I just sleep in the Jeep, but was going to his place every now and then. And they thought I was just there all the time, full time with Andrew, living at his place. Yeah, I didn't really tell them about the van. They just they saw it one day, and then my dad flipped, and he's like, "That's a Friday Night Light skit. No one actually does that in a van down by a river."
That is
Yeah.
Friday night skit. What's
Yeah.
like what's one of the crazy stories that like, did you have any? I'm sure you do.
Oh, right, right. Sorry, lost that thought. Yeah. So when I first started doing it, I was like, "This isn't probably the safest idea." 'Cause my parents kind of freaked me out once they found out, and my mom was like, you need to carry, you need to have a gun on you or something." And so I was like, "Okay, fine. Like, I'll get a gun. I'll get my carry permit." And so I had that. And living in a van in Tennessee is miserable in the summertime because for those of you, anyone that lives in the Southeast knows that in the summertime down there, it's like 90 degrees, it's like 80 to 90% humidity, and you just, even if you're sitting outside, you sweat. So having the van parked outside all day, the car just bakes all day long. And you go in at night to sleep, and it's just like 1,000 degrees warmer. So, and you just sweat all night long, and it's just disgusting, and you hate it. So there was one night I was so sick of it, and I was like, you know what, that's it. I just opened the side doors because like it's just too hot. I can't. I'm sweating bullets. It's just gross. And so I opened the side doors, and around like 3 o'clock in the morning, I just hear weird noises. But you always hear weird noises when you're living in a van parked on the side of the road. But for some reason that night, I'm like, this is even extra weird. And I wake up, and there's three guys walking over towards the van, and they're like, I see them, I can hear them, and they're like whispering to each other, "Hey, is anybody in there? Can you see anybody?" "No, I don't see anybody." "Okay, okay. Can you see anything in the van?" "No, I don't see anything." "Okay, let's go over there and let's find out." Like they're like whispering to each other, and I'm hearing it all. And I didn't have my dog with me at this point, yeah, I had moved in with my mom. Um, And so like I saw them kind of like creeping over the van. So I just rolled over and grabbed my pistol and just like racked around really, really loud. And as soon as they heard me do that, they just, oh shit. And they like turned around and just bolted out of there. Um, and just, I mean, I've never seen people run so fast in my entire life.
They're like, oh no.
Yeah, like, oh no, this crazy white dude in the van's got a gun. Get out.
I guess it was a
Uh,
get that permit then.
yeah, I guess it wasn't the worst idea. So yeah, that was one
What was
weird
the
experience.
process going through all that? Were you like, I'm gonna live in the van for this long or that long, and or was it just kind of like, hey, I'm going with the flow here. This is my situation.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't know what to do. I had the German Shepherd. This is just kind of the way things are right now. This is just what I'm doing. And then once I got rid of the dog, I was like, maybe I should get an apartment now, maybe get a place now that he's down with my mom. But just I actually kind of loved it. Like there were parts that really did suck and parts that still do really suck. It's not all fun like it looks on Instagram. It's mostly fun, but it's not all fun. Um, but just really started enjoying it and was like, because like for a minute there, my bills not paying rent was like I was living off $400 to $500 a month. Like I had no expenses, and like
Yeah.
as a 20-year-old kid making money and being able to put a bunch of it away and save a bunch of it and only living off $500, I was like psyched on it. To me, that was a lot of money. Like I was like, this is sweet. Like I'm saving money, only living on $500 a month. I'm eating a lot of ramen noodles, but
Yeah.
it was nice. And I was traveling quite a bit. So I stayed in Tennessee for a while with the van, just traveling around Tennessee. And occasionally I'd go, travel outside, but still like, I didn't grow up traveling. That wasn't a thing. We went down to the beach in Alabama, but that was it. My dad isn't big into traveling or hiking or leaving the house or anything except for golfing. So we didn't do much. I never had done it before. But yeah, I was just like, this is just what I'm doing. And then ended up really loving it.
So where's some of the first places you started traveling? You had this experience with mountain climbing and you're like, okay, I want to put this to use. Is that kind of how it came about?
Yeah. So I started climbing indoors. And then about 3 months after climbing indoors was like, this is sick. I want to like make more money doing this. So I became a guide. Um, just like everything else I did, I dove headfirst into it right away and started teaching inside. And like, I want to climb outside and I want to guide outside. So I started going outside places in Tennessee. And then the first big trip I took, a friend and I drove all day from Nashville all the way out to Boulder, Colorado, to go climbing. And that was like the first big trip in the van. Not sure what we're going to do, where we're going to sleep, because I had my spots mapped out in Tennessee, like where I could sleep, buddies' places here and there. But yeah, Colorado was the first big trip, and it was amazing. Back home for me where I was born, so it was good.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy how it came full circle from,
Yeah.
and then it's like first big trip in the van. You're in
Mhm.
Colorado. So where in Colorado did y'all go?
Went to Boulder. I've got family friend things out there. Stayed with them. Went up to like the Flatirons area, a place called El Dorado Canyon State Park. Climbed up in there a little bit. Mainly just right there, Denver Boulder, that little front range section. Spent a lot of time climbing in there, hanging out, meeting weirdos. That's another thing too. Living in the van, I've met a bunch of unique people, a bunch of awesome people. But yeah, climb there. We did this. We did the. If you've ever seen the Boulder skyline, you see the Flatirons in the background. It's the three main little rocks there. We climbed that thing. One of the biggest things I had climbed at that point, and was like, this is it. Like this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna travel around and just climb all the rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So are you doing like free climbing stuff or was it with harnesses and
So yeah, so free climbing. Yeah, so stop me too if I use any vocabulary or like any climbing slang. That's like, what is that? Stop me, I'll explain it. So free climbing is you're using your hands and feet, but you're attached to rope, and you have a harness on as well. And
okay.
then free soloing is where you have no gear. at all. You're just climbing, and if you fall, that's it. And at that point, no, I was not doing any free soloing. I was definitely always using gear. And if my mom asks, I still always use gear. um, but yeah, so at that point, it was still using gear and stuff.
Yeah. So do you put it at the top of the mountain or at the top of, how are you doing that while you're going? If you're doing
Right. Okay.
how does that work?
So there are two types of climbing. There's sport climbing, and then there's traditional climbing or trad climbing. Sport climbing, someone else has already gone up and drilled like little eye bolts into the rock, and so you clip to that as you go, and that's your protection. And if you fall back to that last piece, and it's drilled, bolted into the rock, super secure. And then traditional climbing or trad climbing, you have what's called a cam or little nuts, little brass squares that you wedge in the cracks into the rock, and then cams are like little mechanical contraptions. You squeeze it and it's like a round head and it closes up. You put it into the rock and it expands. And any downward pressure on it puts outward pressure on the cams and it stays in the rock, or so you hope, right? And so you clip to that and then go up that way. So you don't go to the top first. You start at the bottom and work your way up.
Have you ever had any scary complications with those things? Because I don't know, it doesn't sound too secure to me.
It is. I mean, it is secure, but it's secure. But there are times like when the rock's not secure, and I've been on climbs before where it's just a blank face, and for some reason, no one put a bolt in, and there's nowhere to put any trad gear, any cams or nuts, and so yeah, your next 40 feet. You've got to, you put a piece in, but then the next 40 feet, there is no gear. So if you fall, you're falling 80 feet. So 40 feet to the left, because you're 40 feet past the gear, you're falling 40 feet past it, and then 40 feet below it. And then whatever, like the rope will stretch, you'll probably yank the person on the other end of the rope up, drop even more. So you're looking at like an 80 to 100 foot fall. I've been in a few of those situations where it's just, there's nowhere for gear. And I've been in spots too where, this route was so long and I got sketched out down there and put a lot of gear, and now I'm still got 60, 70 more feet to go, and I've got two pieces of gear and they may or may not fit because the cracks vary, and you don't really know. So you have a bunch of different sizes. Well, if you've already used them before, which there have been times where I have, you've just got nothing. So you just gotta it's a mental game.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Are you always climbing with a partner? Like you said, there's a partner on the other end, or are you sometimes by yourself?
Oh yeah, when I'm doing any of my rope, when I'm using a rope, in free climbing, yes, I have a partner. When I'm free soloing, no, there's no partner. If I have a partner, I'm gonna use a rope.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was watching, I'm sure you've seen it, and I mentioned this before, but I just think it's incredible. Dawn Wall,
Mm-hmm.
on Netflix. I was watching it. My other cousin on my other side of the family was like, "Hey, you got to check this out. It's pretty incredible." And it's that face in Yosemite where
Yeah,
no one had ever climbed it, and I can't remember the name of the climber, but he's like one of the top.
Tommy Caldwell.
Yep, that's who it is. Yeah,
Mhm.
and he was doing it with like the partner and sleeping in those tents on the side mountain. Have you done that?
I haven't. So it's definitely on my to-do list. Most of my climbs that I've done it in a day. I've been able to go up and down. Or there's been a few climbs where there's like a small ledge, like a rocky ledge. So I just clip myself into the wall and step on the ledge, but never on, those are called porta ledges. I've never stepped on one of those, but definitely on the to-do list for sure.
That just looked crazy to me, like sitting on the side of a mountain and you're just in this tiny little tent. I don't even know how to set those things up. I'm like, that was one of the craziest things to me. And the whole, like, obviously them climbing it is incredible. I think it took them like 2 weeks, but the actual like sleeping in those things, I mean, you'd be used to it with the tight spaces, but gosh.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I don't know. For me, it sounds awesome. Just wake up and have that view right there, and you just halfway up a wall. And I love the exposure. That's like one of my favorite part of the climbing is when you come around to like a rocky edge, and there's just nothing but air beneath you, and it's just you and the rock, and it's pretty great. I love it.
There's like that weird combination of adrenaline and dopamine when you're like doing something you love, and then it's, kind of like for me, like a football game or
Yeah.
something, you got that adrenaline before a game and you love it and it's something that you enjoy. So you have that dopamine too. And then the combination of those two is a beautiful thing. I'm sure that is what climbing is.
Yeah, it is, but it's also like it's different in the fact that you have to like keep it under control as well, because like the consequences, if you like let that overwhelm you and get way too jittered out, like can be serious. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same feeling. It's definitely there. You feel it, and when you're done with the climb, it like spikes for sure.
Yeah. So are you doing any type of deep breathing stuff, or like, before when you're up there and your heart's racing or something, is there times where you have to kind of step back and say, all right, take a deep breath, relax?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. But, like I do a lot of yoga too, so I learned breathing techniques doing that. And actually, I've talked to your mom quite a bit about my aunt about because she does yoga, about breathing techniques and that kind of stuff, ways to calm down, because that's your only option when you're up there. Sometimes it's either calm yourself down or you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, definitely do some breathing techniques to relax, calm down on the wall, and then keep climbing.
Yeah. How has yoga helped? I'm sure with flexibility and stuff.
Flexibility. Some climbs require like awkward positions or high feet. Definitely help with the breathing techniques. Getting a hard yoga pose and then being able to relax your body into it. Same thing goes into climbing. You're in a weird or awkward position and you're really high up and you're scared a little bit too. So being able to calm yourself down and having the flexibility, knowing, okay, I got a high foot, but I can get my foot up there and use it.
Right.
So
What kind of breathing
helps.
techniques have you been doing that you like?
Um, just honestly, I don't know the names of them. There's just certain, you breathe through your nose and out through your nose, but you kind of push with your mouth a little bit. I don't know the technical names of it. I'm not an expert by any means, but there's just certain ones that like really calm you down. And it honestly just makes you more aware of your breath. Doing yoga makes you more aware of your breathing. It makes you more aware of your heart rate, and you can kind of use that in climbing. Okay, like, relax for a second. Okay, like check in with your body. What am I feeling right now? I'm super stressed out. Why am I stressed out? Okay, I gotta calm down. And they can be used, anywhere in life. And it doesn't have to be just climbing. Being able to like internalize and realize, okay, I'm stressed out right now. Why? How do I calm that down? How do I turn that off? And identifying fear and that kind of stuff. Um, that's kind of how it
Absolutely.
helps.
There was this one technique that I really liked. Like I said, I'm no expert in breathing techniques, but one of my old strength coaches would teach us after we did like a heavy, intense workout. We would kind of do some stretching and stuff, and then we would sit there and put our hands on our stomach and lie on our backs, and we'd breathe through our nose and out through the mouth, but you'd belly breathe. So you wouldn't let your chest rise. You would just let your
Right.
stomach rise. So all the air was through the stomach and then out through the mouth.
Right.
And there's a nerve called the vagus nerve, which gives off, don't quote me on this, but it basically helps your body relax, and it lowers your heart rate, and it helps you calm down. And it's good for if you're in high intensity training and your heart rate's really high and you want to kind of get it under control, or if you're just stressed out from a long day and you just got in a fight with your girlfriend and chill out before up, or you can't
Yeah.
sleep at night or something like that. I use it all the time at night whenever I'm trying to wind down and my head's just all these thoughts or things from the day are going on and I just need to calm down. I'll do that deep breathing through, the stomach and out through the mouth. But speaking of that, I've started doing some meditation stuff at the beginning, a little bit before the beginning of the year. Have you gotten into any type of like meditation kind of practices with all of this?
I've always wanted to. I've never gotten too into it. Any of the meditation that I've done has all been like guided meditation. So I'll find like an audio somewhere, or I'll go to like a class and they'll have it. Um, Personally, I haven't done a whole lot of it just on my own. It's usually guided stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that I've done is guided too, but I started trying to get off of the guided stuff and listen to just certain like binaural beats or things. I usually only do it before I go to bed to like help me wind down. But I also think it's big for like manifestation stuff, like when you're in that state of mind and you're super relaxed and the only thing you're thinking about is your breathing, and you know your body is basically shut off and your mind is shut off and you're just kind of there. When you can get to that state and you can start thinking about those things, I think it's a good way to, you know, end the day. Because I think, man, you know, that manifestation stuff is real and it sounds kind of hippy dippy sometimes, but if you practice it and you get good at it, just like anything else, you know, I think it actually does help a lot with a lot of things.
No, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's something I definitely want to get more into. And you say hippy dippy, I got some of the hippiest friends ever, so
Oh,
I get it.
I'm sure a lot of your van friends are incredible at meditation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Meditation, yoga stuff, aerial silk yoga, all that. So yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's super cool. I want to start getting back into yoga more because after football, it was, you know, more heavy lifting and like I got to put on mass and I got to get bigger, faster, stronger. And all those things are still true. You know, I still love doing that stuff, but I've had 2 ACL surgeries. Like I told you before, dislocated my shoulder. Like that flexibility would maybe prolong me from having to get a total knee replacement or something along those lines, you know, down the line. So you got to think about those things.
No, for sure. And I did a lot with my second shoulder injury. I did a lot of yoga to help with that because yeah, you know, you wreck your body and you're done. That's something I've definitely learned,
That
you
stuff
know,
is
through
hard.
everything. Yeah, it is. And then you can't do what you love and it's just you're constantly in pain and it's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a buddy that's really into hot yoga too. And I've never done one of those classes, but I really want to. I'm just afraid on how bad it's going to whoop my ass. Because I know it's going to. I'm going to be in there just.
Oh yeah.
Pinched.
Yeah, I've done it once. It's intense. It's intense, but it's good. You come out feeling like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for today, man. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, what's some of your favorite spots that you've been able to travel to? I'm sure I know I see all the time, you know, you're always on the move with the van. So, how long did that stint with the climbing company go, and then where did you kind of wander off after that?
Yeah, so 2015 is about when I moved into the van. 2016 is when I started doing like more further trips and was gone for like weeks here and there. And then 2017 is when I left Tennessee for good. I got a job climbing and repairing cell phone towers. And that was like work was all over the country. So they would fly me to wherever the work needed to be done. I'd work for 20 days and then they'd fly me wherever my van was. And I'd have 10 days off. Um, so I was able to travel all over because of that, a little even more so. And probably my favorite spots, Moab, Utah, is probably top of the list. It's bizarre. If you've ever been there, you get it. But like anywhere I've gone, I've been able to compare to somewhere else. Like, oh, this place is kind of like that. This place is kind of like that. If I were to compare Moab, it's what I would imagine Mars is like. Okay, it's just completely different. It's a whole nother world, and it's like an adult playground. There's climbing, there's base jumping, there's highlining, and base jumping is where you just jump off a building or you jump off something that's some structure, and pull a parachute. And then highlining is you have like a loose piece of webbing line going from one point to another, and you walk across it. Um, there's like great spots for that there. There's great spots for like kayaking, and there's a bunch of weirdos living down there for sure in the desert, just hanging out and then just playing and having a good time, having fun. So yeah, Moab, loving Moab. Santa Cruz over in California, it's probably some of the best. That's where I learned how to surf. I spent about 6 months sitting over there learning how to surf, and it's incredible. As long as you don't get in the way of a good surfer, because they will let you know over there for sure that surf culture there is still strong. And if you mess up someone's wave over there, they'll let you know about it and ask you nicely to leave.
Yeah, like, dude, you just messed up a good opportunity. What go into surfing a little bit? Like, what was the process of learning that? Because I've tried a few times, and it is not an easy feat.
No, it's not. And I'm still not great at it, or not. I wouldn't even say I'm good at it. I just love it and do it a lot. I January of 2018. So I guess as soon as the tower job was over, I moved to California and didn't know anyone there, and I still wasn't doing a whole lot of free soloing. So I was like, what do I do? I don't have a lot of people to climb with. Working for REI, I was guiding out there for them, but it was kind of all over the place. I didn't have like one home base of people that I hung out with all the time. So I was like, well, I don't really have any partners out here to climb with. So, and also like I'm getting my tax return here in a few days. So, what else do you do when you're in California? You surf. So honestly, I just got a board, bought a board, bought a wetsuit, and just decided I'm going to go paddle out into the ocean and figure this thing out. I had no idea what I was doing, had no one to teach me about it, and spent about a week drowning basically in the ocean, just getting munched, and just slowly picked it up and met people along the way who knew what they were doing, or people were out there watching me surf, took pity on me, like, hey, I see you're having a hard time with this, try this little technique and see if that works better for you. And just I love it. Just something about surfing, man, is just cool. Like climbing's amazing, I love climbing, but that line is always there, anyone can go do it. But when you're surfing, you catch that wave, and once that wave is over, like that's it, like that was your wave. And the fact that like the gravitational pull from the moon creates the water to come up, and then the water hits the surface, what's on the surface, and creates that wave, like all connecting and like tapping into all of that. For me, that's unreal. It's unreal. It's a whole different feeling, a whole different experience to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think it was 2008, if I'm not mistaken, but my dad used to work with a guy by the name of John Alvarez. John's son is Jay Alvarez, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people know he's quite famous. And we went and visited John and Jay in Hawaii. John at the time was working in a coffee shop, and I remember that he had his surfboard on the back of his Jeep at all times. And
Yeah.
my dad said, "Hey, John, why do you have your surfboard on there all the time?" He said, "Well, if I'm coming home from work and I see a good wave, I want to hop in and catch it." And they lived on a perched up house overlooking the North Shore, which was where all the huge waves came. And I remember, like, I'm young. I have a picture of me, Jay, and Maddie from way back when. We're all really little, but he had long hair, and he was super mad that they had started making him wear shoes to school. And he just looked like a little Tarzan running around. He was like, "Come on, like, let's go down and go to the ocean," because their house set up on the hill, and you could climb down these rocks and you could jump into the ocean and kind of swim out. There was a little cave you could swim into, which is a really cool spot. So I'm following Jay, and he's just jumping from rocks, like his feet are just metal at this point, and like everything I'm stepping on, my feet hurt so bad. I'm like, dude, who is this kid? And so we go, and at that time he had just started doing all the video stuff, and he probably doesn't even know who I am at this point, but it was just cool, seeing how his passion for starting to take pictures and videos and stuff like that then evolved into something huge.
Yeah.
But I just remember that surfing story, because John always was just like, "Hey, if I'm coming home from work and I need to catch a wave, I just pull off and I put the surfboard in." Like, that's a great way to live right there. That's a great way to live.
Oh
But
yeah, it's good stuff.
so you also recently got into skydiving, right?
Yeah.
And how is that process? Because I know you can't just solo skydive right off the jump.
Oh, you can. You
You can't.
you totally can. Well, I guess it depends on where you're at. But where I was, if you want your first jump to be solo, all right. But just know what you're getting. They don't recommend it.
Like, here's your waiver, but you can.
Yeah. Here's your waiver, but we don't encourage it, but if you want to sign it, go ahead. But
Wow.
not how I did it. I did my second jump solo.
Okay. That's way big difference. Is there a limit on that? Because I feel like I'm too heavy to, or what I do. Is there a weight limit?
No, it's not. There is for tandem, I think, but so basically the way it works, they have different size parachutes, different sizes called a canopy, and it's like weight to square footage ratio is how they do all that. So the heavier you are, the bigger square footage of your canopy needs to be in order to safely do it. So no, anyone could do it. But the process of getting into it, so I went and jumped my first time, did it tandem. I was like, that was cool, but like my adrenaline peaked so high and it was over in like 2 seconds. And I'm like, did that just happen? Like, I don't even remember any of that. It's also how like my first 5 jumps went. So yeah, I did a tandem jump just to see if I even was into it. And I had a buddy who was really into it who just kept pushing me. His name's Jacob. He's like, bro, you got to go skydiving. Bro, have you gone yet? And like every day would call me, did you go skydiving today? No, I didn't go today. Okay, well, I'll call you tomorrow, ask again. And just was like relentless. And he's like, dude, you've got to go. Because he wants to base jump. He wants us to go climb towers in Moab and places like that and then jump off of them and fly back down. So he's like, you got to learn how to skydive first. I don't want to take you base jumping if you can't even skydive. So I was like, okay. So I finally went skydiving. You do like an 8-hour class. And they tell you how to do everything. But that's the thing with skydiving is you can't really practice any of it without just going and doing it. Like that's the only way to practice it. Now you can go into those wind tunnels and practice your falling, but like the hardest part is, and like the most dangerous part is landing the canopy, landing your parachute. And it could be, and that's what my coach told me. He's like, hey, it's like free fall, don't worry about it. Okay, like you're fine. Like you can't hit anything. There's nothing for you to hit. So like don't worry about it. It's like it's the landing that's really hard. I was like, cool, all right, good to know, thanks. And so yeah, you do your first, I think 4 jumps with 2 guys next to you, and then you do your next 3 jumps with 1 guy next to you. And they just have you do different things each jump, different maneuvers, backflip, front flip, spins, what's called tracking. That's where you fly across the sky, and you gotta like pass it all. So you can fail different jumps, and you gotta redo it. And you gotta like know how to pack your parachute. And man, my first parachute, I was packing it, and I was so nervous. I had like they gave me like the biggest parachute, and it had so much like material just like everywhere, and lines were like all twisted up everywhere. And the coach was like, "Hey, drink beer." I was like, "Yeah, I drink beer, but I got to do this." Like, hang on. I was like so focused. He's like, "Here, drink this," and he hands me a beer. And I chug it. He's like, "Here, now chug this one." He hands me another one. I chug it. He's like, "Here, now sip on this one and pack your parachute." So I'm like, kind of feeling buzzed, but like I'm packing my first parachute, slightly intoxicated. And I was like, "You're watching me, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I won't let you jump it if it's not good." But so I packed it, stowed it all away. He's like, "Sweet, it's cool. Let's go jump it." And so I jumped my first packed parachute that way. Oh man, probably not the greatest idea. I won't say who it was that did that or where I was, so I don't get anybody in trouble. But yeah, the first parachute pack was packed intoxicated and jumped intoxicated as well.
And that
Uh,
I'm sure that high, like right before you jump off, though, is it just right before you jump off where your heart's about to explode?
yeah, because once you jump, you're like, well,
Too-
I've already done it now. Too late to go back. Um, when the plane takes off is when I like, oh man, because like in my mind, when we go up, I'm going out of that plane. Like if I don't jump, one of these guys is gonna throw me out. Like I got in the plane, I'm going out of it. So when the plane takes off is when I feel like I can't back out anymore because of the buddies that I have. But yeah, man, just your heart's pumping. I do my yoga stuff while the plane's going up, and I'm counting, trying to see like where the cloud level is, so that way if I get caught in a cloud, I know that okay, it's 2,000 feet up, so I still have time below to find my landing and all that stuff. But yeah, right before when that door comes up and you feel the wind just come flying in, you're just like, oh no, like it's about to happen. But it's cool. Like the more you jump too, it starts to slow down. Like your first few jumps is like boom, 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 done, okay, we're down. And then by like jump 10, 11, I was like watching my watch to see what altitude I was at. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'm still falling. Okay, not there yet, still falling. It really slows down. And once you learn how to fly your body, It's cool. It's so different, man. It's not natural. You know, I mean, humans don't fly, right? So to be able to fly, actually control your body and fly across the sky, it's awesome. Yeah, it's really
That's
cool.
incredible. I've always wanted to do it, and I just need to man up and do it. But
You
I
just
know
gotta go.
it's how many have you had now? How many jumps?
Right now, I'm at 22 solos, so still working on it. Haven't jumped in a while. Living up in Washington the past like 10 months, all winter long, and we don't really get a clear sunny day to jump up there. So because
Yeah.
it rains every day up there. But yeah, I got 22.
What were you doing up in Washington?
I was up there guiding, working for a climbing gym. That's where I was before, and where I think I'm going to go back after all this is over with. But
Yeah.
when will that be? You know, no one knows. Yeah, I was up there guiding, teaching climbing up there, hanging out, surfing, cold water up there. Whew.
I bet.
Yeah, went surfing one day up on the Strait, which is like the very top part of Washington, and it was like 19 degrees outside and 47 in the water, and we're walking through snow to go out to the surf. It was really cool. Yeah, I went and surfed in that. It was good, great waves, man. So we went out, but
Was it really like is there different? Can you tell difference in waves when you're in different spots in the US?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the temperature doesn't affect it too much. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know. I know winter storms push in bigger waves. You know, again, all my surfing is self-taught and reading books and watching videos. But yeah, so like what's at the bottom of the ocean affects the way the wave is, the way it breaks, which is why, you know, North Shore, like you were talking about, is known for having great waves. It's because the way the swell pushes in and hits the bottom just right. Um, it's like usually reef bottoms that hit very consistent like that. So yeah, every wave is different. Even in the same spot from day to day is different.
I've seen some videos of guys like 50-foot, not even bigger than 50-foot waves, and they just look like a tiny speck.
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, Mother Nature, take me. If you fall
Yeah, I'm not surfing that.
those swells, I feel like you'd just be tumbling and tumbling for just.
Yeah, you're down for a minute. If you come off in a big wave, you're gonna be under for a second. Most of those guys can hold their breaths for quite a long time.
Oh, I bet. But
So
your foot is attached to the board, right?
yeah, so some people do that most of the time on big waves. I've seen people not attached to the board because the board can just get drugged through, right? Um, so some people don't wear leashes for bigger surfing. Some do. It all varies. It's kind of what do you want to do?
Right. Personal preference.
Because the like the thought was, you know, you'll get pulled down, but your board's gonna float, so you can just climb up your leash, and that gets you out of the water a little bit quicker. Um, but the last thing you want in the big wave is to get hit by that board. Or the last thing you want in any wave is to get hit by a board.
Mm.
So some people don't wear a leash because of that.
Yeah. And I know that you went, so somewhere in here in this journey of places, you ended up in Hawaii for a little while, right?
Yeah, that was the most bizarre, non-planned out, and I don't plan out a lot of stuff, but that was the most non-planned out move in the world. Um, God, where was I? I think I just left Washington for the first time, maybe 2019, and just didn't know where to go. I was like, I don't know. I don't have a job lined up. I'm just kind of traveling for a bit. Was up in South Dakota climbing, and then went down to Nevada and outside of Las Vegas and Red Rocks was climbing. And then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm living over in Maui. You should come over here and try to get a job on the sailboat." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like, where would I live?" She was like, "I don't know, but come on." And so I was like, "Okay, well, I'll apply first." And she told the company that I had been living on Maui for a few months. Apparently, they won't hire like from the States because they don't want you just moving over there for the job or whatever. Like they don't, unless you're already there, they don't want to hire you.
Right.
So I applied for this job, then found out that she told them that. And so they called me like, hey, like, and I was in Nashville, Tennessee, actually, when they called. They're like, hey, we heard, you know, we saw your resume. It looks awesome. We see you've got a lot of experience guiding everywhere, doing stuff. Um, Also, our friend that we know said that have been in Maui for 2 months. And I was like, oh, yeah, for sure. Like, absolutely. And they're like, cool. So like, we did an interview process, and they're like, hey, so we think we like you, but we want to do an in-person interview first before we offer you the job, just to make sure like that we really like you, that you really know how to sail. I had no idea how to sail, no clue. I never sailed a day in my life. And I was like, oh yeah, like back in Tennessee, we sail on the lake all the time. Like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And they're like, okay, cool. Can you come in tomorrow for a job interview in person? And I was like, tomorrow? Can it be like late in the evening? And they're like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Like 6 p.m. our time. I was like, yeah, cool, like that works. So I hung up the phone, like drove down to my parents' house, dropped off my car, grabbed a backpack, went to the bookstore, bought a How to Sail book for dummies, and hopped on a flight and just flew to Hawaii. And was like, you know what? I'm just gonna figure it out. I've got another plan. Why the heck not? So I go over there, walk in, I get in there just in time, read this whole like huge How to Sail book for dummies, the whole like 8-hour flight over, walk into this interview and just crushed it, and they offered me the job. And so I walk out and I'm like, sweet, I got a job in Hawaii. Now I got to figure out like where I'm going, where I'm going to live. Like I was literally just standing on Hawaii with my backpack and was like, all right, like I guess I have to figure this out now. And yeah, that was awesome. Spent a few months over there working on a sailboat. Found a little shack just up the road, maybe a 2-minute walk from the beach, and was just there all the time, hanging out, surfing, working on the boat. Yeah, it was awesome. Like diving with turtles every day.
Yeah.
It was turtle sharks, little reef sharks.
Yeah, there was. I remember when we were snorkeling one time, I was with my mom when we went out there. It was the same trip. I've only been out there once. But I still remember snorkeling and seeing a huge turtle. I tried to grab onto it. And then
Yeah.
we saw a couple reef sharks down below, puffer fish, and the place is magical.
Yeah, no, it's awesome for sure. It's a different world. And honestly, like the vibe over there is definitely like island time's a thing. Like we'll get around to it when we get around to it, but we're not in any hurry. Like we'll see you when we see you. Like that's how it is. Cause when I got the job, like, yeah, well, you're hired. Like, when do you want to start? Tomorrow. Well, we're not super busy tomorrow. Let's like start you in like 3 days. Dang it. All right. I kind of need to make some money, but sure. And then like, okay, I want to come see this apartment. Like maybe I'll move in. All right. Well, we're out surfing today, so maybe we'll be able to swing by tomorrow and show it to you. It's like, oh my gosh. Like I'm trying to make it happen. But yeah, everyone over there is like, we'll do it when we do it.
That's so cool, though. I feel like that had to be an incredible experience.
Yeah, it was wild for sure. And my mom's like, this is so cool. You had no plan and you just went over there. I'm like, yeah, sure did. Like, absolutely. Um, yeah, cool
The
place.
shack, like how'd you come upon the shack?
My brother knew a guy who was over there. And so I reached out to him. He's like, yeah, there's this like, I don't want to call it a hippie commune, but it's kind of what it was. It was this big property with like 4 houses on it,
Mm-hmm.
and like 20 people living on it. And I was like, you know what? For $500 a month, I'm never going to be at the house. I'm always going to be out in the ocean surfing or on the sailboat. Like, yeah, sure. Like, so I lived there until I figured it out, but then ended up just staying there because it was just easy. Right?
What was that experience like? I'm sure there were some interesting cats on that place.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean,
Think I'm losing you here. Bunks or
yeah. So it's one kitchen, like a living space area, and then just a bunch of rooms off to the side, kind of deal. It's interesting too. Like none of the houses, and most of the houses in Hawaii, they don't have AC. Um, it's honestly, it kind of feels like you got out of the country a little bit. Like there's no AC in the houses. There's lizards everywhere, man. You get in the shower and there's like probably 2 or 3 lizards in there with you. You go to like what they have, like their grocery store, there's chickens walking around. Like it's a different world, man. It's different over there, but it's super fun.
yeah, absolutely. So what I mean, what's next? Like, what is next in the life? Or do you have a plan, or is it kind of just we're going?
Kind of just we're going, and I like to run it like that. That way, whatever. That way, if Hawaii calls and wants me to come to an in-person interview, I can just up and go and say, sure, why not? Let's figure it out. I have some loose plans. At some point, I am wanting to get a sailboat and live on a boat for a while, get my own, like really learn how to sail and go across the country in that, or go across the world, honestly, in that thing. But I just bought my newest van, big van, doing a full build out on it, solar panels, kitchen, refrigerator on it, everything, the whole 9 yards. So I'll probably hang in that van for a couple years before I sell it, travel in that too.
Yeah.
So
Still just sowing the seed.
yeah, just traveling, learning, meeting people, making connections, trying to figure stuff out. Like I said earlier, trying to get into free diving a little bit. Started that when I was in Hawaii, but then up in Washington, wasn't much of that going on.
Right. So free diving, you're just from the top, one breath of air down for as long as you can, right?
Yeah, one breath of air down, as long as you can. Don't pass out.
Yeah. I'm sure those breathing techniques that we went over are huge when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of techniques. It's called breathe up techniques. Things you do before you go down to kind of get your body prepared for the carbon dioxide buildup and everything. And again, what's different about free diving, like with climbing and surfing, you can control your breathing, and your breathing is what you use to calm yourself down. But when you're free diving, you can't do that. Like you can't breathe. Like once you're under the water, that's when you're freaking out. You're not really freaking out when you're on top, sitting there hanging out, but it's when you're underwater that you no longer can use those breathing techniques to calm yourself down. So the whole different psychological aspect to it as well, which is I'm still working on.
What's the biggest thing that you've seen as far as living out of the van and, traveling in this idea of wanderlust that you obviously have? Like been your mindset? Like what about it prior like attracted you to it, and what now is keeping you locked in with the idea?
Yeah, so like at first, it's just this is kind of what I got to do. I don't got nowhere to go. Van, sure, and I've always been one for just sure, well, go try it and see what happens. But just the simplicity of it, just being able to go where I want to go when I want to go there. And I've got friends who call me too, like, man, I wish I could go the places that you go, but I just can't afford it. I'm like, I don't know what you think I do. I don't make $100 million a year. Like I don't make a lot of money. Like, these people make triple what I make. Right. But I get to do that because I don't have an apartment. I get to do that because I don't need, a new outfit every other weekend. Right. Like I don't go out on Friday nights and party. Oh, sometimes, but like, I don't spend that kind of money like that. And just the simplicity of it and being able to see all the places and go everywhere and meeting people. Cause like, I don't know, you might be able to relate to this, but I grew up down in the Southeast where it's very strict, conservative, Bible Belt. Everyone kind of thought the same way, right? There was no different way of thinking, or you weren't there really. Like it was all very similar. So that is really attractive to me. Meeting people who have a different thought process, a different opinion, and not just like, oh, that's their opinion, they're wrong, but actually listening to people, this is what happened to me, this is why I think this, and trying to, understand, like, there's more than one way to do things, right? And if we all did it the same way, which is kind of the way back south, it's not as exciting. It's kind of boring. It's just, okay, cool. Like, yeah, you and everybody else does that too. Cool. I don't know. Just the different mindset of it and the freedom that it allows is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. That freedom is just, I feel like that's so enticing for a lot of people, but kudos to you for actually doing it. It almost seems like you were kind of thrust into this situation and then you just took it and run with it because you found something you were passionate about.
Yeah.
a lot of times people would love to do what you're doing now, but they just don't take that step off the ledge, you know?
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of friends ask me, oh, I've always wanted to do this. How do you start? Well, you start by doing it. Like, and that's the thing too. Like, I didn't, like, how did you figure it all out? How did you have it all planned out before? Oh, I didn't. Like, I'm in it for 5 years and I still don't have it all figured out. Like, you just kind of, if it's what you really want, you just got to go do it. Like, that's all there is to it, you know? Like,
There's not this everyone that started something started from exactly where you are. Like they didn't have this background of, you know, oh, guitar, for example, you don't pick up the guitar and you just can be able to play like, you know, Jimi Hendrix. No, that Jimi
right.
Hendrix one day picked up a guitar and was like, what is this thing and how do I play it? And
Right.
he'd practice and practice and practice and he was passionate. Then, you know, things happen. But that initial step off the deep, like, how do I plan for this? You can't plan for everything. Like
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to plan for everything, no matter how hard you try.
Right. No, and even now, like 5 years into it, I'm still running into challenges. Like, because you know, especially now with the quarantine, I've always had somewhere to go shower at the gym. You know, easy state parks, go park there. But now you can't be in state parks. You can't go to certain places. Public restrooms in Oregon got closed down for a minute, and that got interesting. I couldn't had nowhere to go to the bathroom for a hot second. So that was like, all right, cool, cool. Um, so yeah, there's no way to plan for it. And like everything, you're probably gonna suck at it at first. Like I didn't get good at climbing just one day. Like I was pretty terrible at it when I first started, but I loved it. But I absolutely loved it. And so, I mean, if you're great off the couch at anything, you know, good for you. Awesome. That's sick. But personally, when you suck at it and you have to really, really work for it, I think that's when you can really appreciate it. Right? You really appreciate what you have because you work so freaking hard for it.
Right. It's a lot more rewarding than something
Yeah.
just, you know, handed to you.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you? If they want to find you on social media, if they want to check out your Instagram is awesome. I just was checking it out before the show. It's
Yeah.
got some cool pictures on there.
Yeah, so it's just Clint_Sanderson is on Instagram. I'm not on it much. I used to be on it quite a lot, but lately I've been lacking. Need to pick back up on that. But that's the thing too, is I just forget sometimes. I've got a million photos that I've taken and just too busy doing something else to sit on my phone and post the picture real quick.
And
So
that is not a bad problem to have.
no, it's not.
Really not.
Absolutely not. I for a while I kind of made it a thing of mine. Like I had like a morning routine, and one time I caught myself like every morning. The first thing I did is like grab my phone. It's like for a while I had like don't touch my phone for at least first 3 hours of the day, and then I can go get it. And that's kind of what like kicked me off Instagram a little bit. But yeah, I'm on Instagram there. I have a Facebook. I don't know if I've touched that in 4 years though. So if you want to find me on that, you totally can.
What
Other than that, yeah. So,
question I like to ask everybody is, what is your definition of success?
I think my definition of success, and again, that's very different for everyone. If you ask even my family, I'm not very successful. Because I don't have much, right? And I got enough to fit in a van, even less than that. But for me, it's being happy and content with who you are and where you are. And it's that simple. It does not for me. And this is different for everyone, but for me, it's just all it is. If you're not happy with where you are and what you're doing, then you're not very successful. I don't think.
Yeah.
Someone might disagree with me, but I think if you've got the biggest house and all the money and you're unhappy, I don't know. I couldn't call that a win.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why I always ask, because I think it varies so much, It's not
Right.
always about material things for some people, or maybe it is, or maybe it's not about, the big house or what you can go travel and see, or it just depends and it varies. And I think that what you said is good because it makes it unique to each person by saying, you're happy. Are you happy doing this? And are you comfortable in your own skin? And I think that's a good way to put it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Clint, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome. And I know a lot of people are going to really enjoy this episode. There's some great stories and stuff in there. So really appreciate you coming on and glad everything's going good.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.